Cold calling is a great aggressive strategy even in this crazy market. In this video, I'm going to go through all the best practices of cold calling and help you avoid some of the pitfalls so you can start finding great deals. And we start right now. Hey there friends, my name is Anson Young and I am a real estate investor doing flips and wholesales, and I'm also a real estate agent here in Denver, Colorado. And I'm also the author of this book, Finding and Funding Great Deals Out Through Our Friends, right here on BiggerPockets. That's my favorite movie quote, right there in the book. If you want even more information, I'm going to give you a discount code at the end of this video for 20% off at the BiggerPockets bookstore for this book. Since you're right here on BiggerPockets YouTube channel, please subscribe, give them a like. If you don't like the video, hit the dislike button twice, that'll really show them. And if you want to leave a comment, please do so. I try to read all of them and respond to most of them. And don't forget, at the end of each one of these videos are action steps, because this information is only so exciting. You have to go put it into work. You gotta go take action, gotta do it. It's on you. Don't blame me. All right, friends, you knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. It's time to talk about cold calling as a marketing strategy. So what the heck is cold calling? This is when you call somebody and you try to sell them something, or you try to sell them on something. In our case, we're calling to try to see if they want to sell their house, and if so, they're gonna sell it to us, right? So we're trying to get as much information as possible by trying to figure out what they need, what their situation is, how much they want for the house, and then move on to the next step. Setting an appointment, negotiating the price, looking at the home, and finally signing a contract to buy the home. You have never talked to this person before, so it's a cold lead. You're trying to warm them up as quickly as possible, build as much rapport, and get as much information from them in a very short amount of time. Well, that sounds pretty easy, I can hear you saying, because you make phone calls all the time. So what's different with cold calling? Well, we're gonna go through the best practices, and we're gonna even go through scaling. And at the end, we're gonna talk about the pitfalls so that you don't fall into them and hurt yourself or get sued. Don't want that. Part 1, we're going to be talking about best practices. Like direct mail, I think of cold calling in two areas. The targets, this is who we are calling, and the message, this is what we are saying. The methods to get the lists of targets are the same as episodes 3 and 4. That was marketing lists and driving for dollars. When we get lists in those ways, typically we only get a name and an address, whether it's the mailing address or the property address. Most of the time, both. I'm no phone expert, but I know that I can't just dial in somebody's address and call them. There has to be a missing step there somewhere. So we actually need to get their phone numbers from there. So the best way to get these is through skip tracing. Skip tracing is when you get more information on a person by going through a company who pulls usually their public data, their credit data, all kinds of different data in order to get you more information. You're basically paying to be kind of a private investigator to get better phone numbers, maybe their most recent addresses. It's kind of scary if you think about it. So don't think about it too long, I guess. So what is the cost? It's between 5 cents and typically $1, but you do get what you pay for, as I've learned. And it really depends on if you're doing this in bulk, if you're just doing one at a time. All different companies charge different amounts, so you're gonna have to do a little bit of homework to scrape around and figure out what's going on. The $1 skip trace is usually a one-off, just one at a time. It's gonna give you a ton of data, but $1 per name is gonna get really expensive when you're looking at a marketing list that's 5,000 people or 10,000 people in that list. And all the way down at 5 cents, you're probably gonna get what you pay for. It's gonna be a little more inaccurate. They might give you 5 or 6 phone numbers, but 4 or 5 of those are gonna be so old and outdated, it's not even gonna be worth giving them a call. So the sweet spot is 12 cents to 30 cents. That's a pretty reasonable cost for getting the information that you need to be able to do this more direct and aggressive marketing method. Direct mail is very passive. You send a letter, hope they call. Cold calling is you call and you call and you call and you call and you call until they tell you to go away or they sell you the house. Or they might report you or sue you, but stay tuned, we'll talk about that in a minute. So most investors are doing this in bulk. They're sending a company a list of 5,000. They're getting the list back with an append. So they're adding to their list of, hey, we looked up the name and the address, and here's the phone numbers that we found. So they'll send you an Excel sheet back with all your names and addresses just as you sent them, but now they have a phone number attached. So you're trading speed for money. You give them money, they look up 5,000 people that you couldn't look up in that amount of time. It's an easy transaction. Now you can do this for low cost or for free, but you're trading the speed for the money, so it's a much slower process. You're typically gonna go to whitepages.com, you're gonna look these people up one at a time. Now, if you're only calling 5 or 10 or 50 people, that's not a big deal at all. You can go ahead and do that. But a list of 5,000 is going to be a lot of work. So figure out what you're worth per hour and then go from there. So that's everything to do with the targets. Now let's talk about the message. Now, cold calling isn't for everybody. I totally get it. The pressure of getting somebody on the phone and then turning a cold lead into a warm lead and building as much rapport as possible in a short amount of time is stressful. So I get when investors and agents and other people just really don't like cold calling. Honestly, most days I don't either. But the two things that will make this easier is scripts and practice. So with scripts, the goal isn't to sound like a robot that's just reading a list of questions. We want to sound organic. We want to sound like ourselves. We want to build rapport, and we want to absolutely kind of form the initial part of that relationship, let them know that we're a real person, and get them to trust and like us as soon as possible. Sounds easy, right? So a script will keep us on track with the homeowner and let us ask all the questions that we want to ask, because sometimes you just get off into conversation and you forgot to ask them some pretty important things in order to further evaluate the deal. Now, there are dozens and dozens of scripts out there on Google. Just do a search for real estate investor cold call scripts and you'll find a bunch. The next goal is to get them, read over as many as possible, and then start tweaking them to sound more like you and pick out the ones that you can see yourself using. So when I get somebody on the phone, my goal is to bring up the property and kind of a direct reason of why I'm calling, and then do a needs analysis and really step back and just listen. So a needs analysis is just really listening for what the homeowner's pain points are, what's bothering them, what's wrong with the property, what's wrong with their scenario and their situation, and then you're filling in the gaps of how you can help and how you can help solve their problems. I mean, the absolute perfect cold call is you listening way more than you're talking. And of course, showing them that you're listening. So if you could quickly and easily sell your home here in Colorado to be closer to your grandkids in Alabama, that sounds like something you would do in a heartbeat, correct? That shows that I heard the entire story about their kids possibly moving to Alabama. Their grandkids are now in a different state. They're kind of tired of this home here that needs a lot of repair. And I'm listening to what they're talking about and I'm filling in the gaps with solutions. And of course, this is a subject that we could spend video after video on, an hour after hour. This is really a skill that you should sharpen, and it can't just be covered in this 5-minute section. But I want to get you started. I want to get you out the door and going. You can work on mastery through repetition. So also keep in mind that not everybody will actually answer the phone. So have a script ready for a voicemail that conveys what you want to convey. It could be, hey, I'm calling, this is important, please give me a call. And some people mention the property, some people don't. A lot of things are up to you, your personality, the area that you're in, the type of homeowner that you're calling, all kinds of stuff. So the second part to the message is practice. If you network with somebody locally or on BiggerPockets and you want to bounce scripts off each other, role play, the more repetition that you can get in, the more prepared you are when you're holding your phone, you've dialed in the number, the phone's now ringing, and you're on the spot of what to say. If you've practiced it a bunch of times, it's going to be much easier. So if you're not going to practice, then you just know that your first 50 to 100 phone calls are going to be pretty rough. You may not know exactly what to say. You may trip up on what you're trying to get across. It's not the end of the world for sure, and that you can move on to the next call. Put them in the cycle a couple months later. Hopefully they forgot about all of your blunders and go from there. Because even if you just read scripts with a friend or your dog or your spouse or whoever, the real fire comes when you're being tested by a homeowner with questions that you haven't answered before, or sticking to what you're trying to say to get them to do what you want them to do. And here's a really quick pro tip. I'm here from behind the scenes while you watch this pretty video, but you will be told no. You're gonna encounter some negativity and people who are mad at you for calling. You just have to pick yourself up for the next call and not let it affect your flow. Part 2 is scaling. Let's do some simple math really quick. I am just one person. Cut it out. And I have one phone. How many calls can one person make with one phone at a time? That's pretty simple. The answer is one. One phone call at a time. One phone call is not too bad. If I only have about 50 to make in a day, that might take 90 minutes or so. But what do I do if I need more leads in the door to feed my big fix and flip machine? I need more leads, so I need more calls. And I only have one phone and I'm only one person. So what do we do from here? I need help. The first solution is a dialer system. This is a software solution where on my computer, I can load in my entire list. And let's just say I want to just start calling. The system is going to automatically call the first number. Then, if they pick up, I talk to them, we go on with our time, I hang up, it's gonna automatically call the next person. So I don't have to sit here and I don't have to type in each phone number one at a time, because that sucks up time. So if I leave a voicemail, it goes to the next call. Then it goes to the next call. You get the idea. The next solution is a multi-line dialer. So this is a dialer that calls 3 numbers at the same time. So it calls 3 at once. That's like triple. So what happens if somebody picks up? Well, it picks up the line, and then for most of them, you can automatically leave voicemails for the other lines that did not pick up. So that is 3 calls in the time that it would take you to make 1 call. But can we do a little bit better? I think we can. And this is where outsourcing comes in. So you can hire callers to call for you and absolutely scale that way. So paying a caller $5 or $15 an hour, depending on where you're hiring them from, means that you are now free to do other high-level tasks and let them qualify the leads and then get them over to you. What could I do with all this extra time? There's kind of 2 ways to do this. You can either hire your own cold callers, train them up, and then track what they're doing and make sure, listen to all the calls and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and saying what they're supposed to be saying. Or most investors just hire a company who trains cold callers for you. You give them your scripts and kind of the idea of what your company is and the things that are important to you to ask the homeowner. And then they train the callers and then track them, make sure that they're doing a good job, and go from there. Obviously, hiring your own is a lot more work, but it can be rewarding if you hire a rock star cold caller. And in both scenarios, you want to listen to examples of this person making cold calls so you can have a good idea of what to expect, what your homeowners are listening to, and how the message is getting across. Do your due diligence, of course. Now it's time for a pro tip. How do I keep track of who I've called, who's picked up, notes from these calls, how to follow up, all that stuff. You are going to need a CRM. This is a customer relationship management software that will help you stay organized. You could put people into a follow-up sequence, you can set appointments, you can do all kinds of things inside of the CRM that's going to keep you very organized, because believe me, if you're making 50 phone calls a day, you're going to want to keep track of who you called, who you left voice messages for, who yelled at you, who wants to be taken off the list. You want to keep track of all of these different things so that you stay on top of it. And most dialers these days and most cold call companies actually integrate with CRMs. So you can tell who's been called, when they were called, if they picked up, all that good stuff. So it's technology like working together until, they take over the world or something. I don't know. So part 3 is the pitfalls of cold calling. These are the things to avoid. So while there are many types of sellers that you do want to call, there are also lots of different people that you don't want to call. These two are the do not call list and the litigator list. In 2003, the Federal Trade Commission set up the do not call registry, which is you have to go manually put in your phone number to get on this list, but telemarketers now should not call you. If they do, they can get fined. If they continue to do so, they can get in a lot more trouble. But you, as a marketer, you definitely want to take your list of all of your targets and you want to scrub it, which means that you're going to take off certain people. I like to send this to a company that's going to go ahead and scrub the list against the do not call list. So it's going to take my list and eliminate those people so that I am less likely to get in trouble for making cold calls. And the second one is the litigator list. This is even worse than the do not call list. This isn't like a federal registry. This is a list of people who have previously sued companies or individuals for calling them. So of course you don't want to call the people who already have a track record of suing people like us or companies. Because there are 150,000 people in the US who are on this litigator list, with something like 1,500 being added every month. That's a lot of lawsuits I don't want to be part of. So the remedy is the same. I send this to the same company who scrubs the do not call, and I have them scrub against the litigator list so that if anybody's on there, I really want them off so that when I call, I'm less likely to get in trouble. So those are the two biggest pitfalls of cold calling: the do not call list, and of course the litigator list, which is more like a spike tiger trap or something. All right, so that is cold calling, and now it's time for action steps. Number 1, get your scripts and start practicing. Go find the scripts that work for you and start to tweak them, and then take those and begin practicing immediately. Action step number 2 is get your systems in place. Cold calling does require just a few systems, whether it's just your cell phone or if you're doing dialers or CRMs. Going and looking for scrubbing services, start lining those up immediately so you have no excuse. Once your lists are in place and your scripts are in place, you are ready to call. You don't have to wait on the systems. And number 3 is kind of a cop-out. Just get started. Make a goal to call at least 5 people this next week. Start small so that you don't overwhelm yourself, and just know your first 50 to 100 phone calls are going to be terrible. Don't be embarrassed, don't feel bad, but it's just the way that it is. Don't aim for perfection. Just aim for consistency and quality and, learning your lessons and moving on. So here is the code for 20% off at the BiggerPockets bookstore for the book Finding and Funding Great Deals. If you want to go use it, just type it in there and you'll get 20% off. It's like magic. The next video in this series is more direct to seller. We're going to cover door knocking, texting, emailing, and maybe a few others. If we have time, I'm going to crunch it down into one video. As always, I'm Anson Young. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me on BiggerPockets, send me a message, find me on YouTube, send me a message. We can go from there. But thanks for your time and for your attention. And until next time, happy cold calling. Get out there. 5 calls this week. You go do that.